If you have a container of self-trust and self-love and self-compassion for yourself and groups of people and ways to support yourself in that, because we are not an island, we need each other, then you can navigate that space and navigate, can I experience guilt? Again, guilt is just an emotion. Can we feel it without it making it mean I'm a bad mom?
Hello and welcome back to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. Today I am sitting down with Jennifer Erwin for round 2. Jennifer was on the podcast last summer on episode 62 of the Raising Wild Hearts podcast, and we talked about quieting the inner critic and self-love and self-compassion. So certainly go back and listen to that if you haven't already. After you listen to today's episode, we are talking all about how to make decisions from a kind and loving place and how to ditch the indecision forever, hopefully. I am sure, like me, sometimes you are feeling stuck, like you are standing at a crossroads, staring at the possible paths, paralyzed by a choice that you need to make. I know that I have found myself in that position at least once or twice today. In all seriousness, though, I know how challenging it can be to make a decision, especially a big life decision surrounding kids or education or the city you live in. And that's why I talk about many examples from my personal life, which I have navigated, some better than others, because I want you to be able to relate to the stories that I share. So today on this conversation with Jennifer Erwin, we are diving into what you actually need to make decisions, what staying on the fence is costing you, ways to frame decision making so it becomes much easier to make clear decisions, and so much more. And Jennifer has so generously gifted us the Decision Clarity Toolkit. So I'm going to link that down below in the show description. Click on that, grab it. I already did. I'm like halfway through it. It's so good. It's a lot of what we talk about in this episode and some new stuff too. So definitely check that out. Jennifer is a gift of a human. She is a life coach for women. She is so wise. She works with women who are feeling stuck, moving from overwhelm and self-doubt into clarity, confidence, and deeper self-trust. She guides women in reconnecting with their values, yes please, and making aligned decisions, all through the lens of self-compassion. This is Jennifer's superpower. She has trained with many, many talented teachers that have come before her on the gift, tool, and talent of self-compassion. I cannot wait for you guys to hear my conversation today with Jennifer Erwin. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome back to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
It's such a joy and pleasure to be back and talking with you again.
I'm so glad you're here too. I've been so excited for this conversation. I've been chewing on the topic for like a month now. We scheduled about a month ago. And as soon as you said it, I was like, yes, that's it. Because so many of us, myself included, have a difficult time making decisions. And for me in the past, I've said, I'm just indecisive. I just like labeled myself. I'm just indecisive. That's just who I am. That's just how I am. Right. And, I've got a friend right now who's struggling with a decision to, am I going to homeschool my kids or not next year? Right now, as we're recording this and as it's coming out, we're kind of getting into the summer months a little. And she's had this idea in her head for a couple months. And in one idea, like on one side, she's like, oh, I can provide them this ideal childhood and we can do this and we can do that. And she's idealizing this, picture of it in her head. And then on the other hand, she's like, well, they're happy in school and, my daughter's thriving there. And so why change it if it's not broken? And it's this cycle. And we all do this regardless of the decision where we go back and forth and back and forth. So let's just start there. And what would you say to that person, to my dear friend, and to all of us who have these decisions in our lives, who are on the fence and feeling totally burned out and just like on this hamster wheel of indecision? What would you say to us?
Oh my gosh, that is so relatable. And I think so many listeners out there will be like, oh my gosh, that's me. And I used to label myself as indecisive. Like, how many of us do that, of just absorbing it as part of our identity? And then that in and of itself makes it hard to make a decision because then we're attached to being not making decisions because it's part of who we are.
Yeah.
But as for the person that's going back and forth, usually do that when both choices are good and there's not a clear answer. Like there are some decisions out in the world where there's like a clear right answer and a clear wrong answer. Usually, like, do I hurt someone or do I not? Like those very basic ones. But most of the life decisions that we make are not black and white. And yet in our minds, sometimes we still equate it as there's a right choice that will lead to a good outcome and I won't feel regret. I'll feel happy with my choice. There'll be a choice that we are like happy with in our imaginations before we made a choice. And there's a choice that then I will feel sad about and regret. But we don't know which one of those choices truly will bring us to that place because we're outsourcing. We've got this false belief that the choice itself will bring a sense of happiness or a feeling that we want. And the truth is, on those big decisions, we take whatever place we land on. When we jump off the fence and we decide, we're going to bring our brains and our human experience with us, and it's going to be mixed, especially in these choices where it's going to be good either way. It's just going to be mixed. There's going to be some moments of regret because we don't know how the other choice would turn out. And there's going to be moments of joy. So that's, I think, where we get stuck is that we don't trust ourselves to handle the feelings, emotions, thoughts that we experience on either side. So it feels really safe to waffle. And there's usually values on both sides, and so it makes it hard. But I think it's that we're not trusting ourselves that we can handle whatever happens. Like for your friend, if you choose homeschooling, it's going to be hard. There's going to be moments of self-doubt. There's going to be transition since it's different. And there's going to be moments of joy where you're like, as a homeschooling mom, I know there's, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that we have this space and freedom and flexibility and I see my kids bloom in different ways and we have a different relationship. And there's days where you're thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I need to outsource this to someone else because this is hard. And then if your kids are in school and happy, you can appreciate that. And there's going to be good things and hard things. They're going to come home from school and they're going to have a teacher that they don't click with. And, either side is good. And so it's about choosing based on your inner knowing and your values, and then making the choice and saying, I'm going to trust myself to handle whatever happens, and I'm going to treat myself with kindness on the other side of whichever decision.
Right. So light bulb, Jennifer, because when you were talking about, we're perceiving that this choice, there will be one path that's like the happy path, and then there will be one path that's like the sad path. And it's like this, like, I'll be happy when, but also like I'll be sad when. We decided to move cities just 30 minutes away, like a year and a half ago. And my husband and I were like, do we do it? Do we not do it? Do we do it? Do we not do it? And we said, let's just put our house up for sale and see what happens. Let's just see. We did the pros and cons list. We talked endlessly. We spun our wheels. We had the same conversations over and over and over again. And we put our house up for sale and it sold in like a week. And we were like, okay, universe, we can play with this. Like, let's play with it. And so we moved. And it was one of those things where it didn't feel forced anymore. Like once that had been made, it was like almost a relief. I do this thing. I did it yesterday where I was thinking about our home. We downsized to live like closer to the beach. And so we had this giant yard and we had 2 living rooms and we had this very like big property. And yesterday I was like, gosh, I loved that room. What would I be doing to that room now? And I'm like, what am I doing right now? Like I caught myself going like, I'm like dreaming about this house that we will never own again. We will never live in again. And I'm sitting here going like, what if we stayed? And it's so interesting that we do that because you mentioned regret, right? And I think my question here is, I think like the call, the invitation here is, what do we do with that regret and that feeling of, I guess it's sadness. I think that we let ourselves feel it, right? We let ourselves go there. And then what do we do with it? Like, how do we throw it out the window? Or is it always going to be something that's present with us?
Yeah, that is such a good question. Fear of regret is one of the biggest things I see in my clients of like, what if I regret it? And what's interesting about regret is that it's almost solely based on the story that you're telling yourself. So you have so much control over it in terms of reframing your thoughts. There are some emotions that I find are a lot harder, like that you have a lot more thoughts that stimulate that emotion.
Yeah.
But regret usually is fairly simple because there's usually only one storyline or two maybe that are driving that feeling of regret. So the first thing is, like you already named, which is so beautiful, we have to feel the feeling. And we're so scared of feelings. But when we actually, and I do this with my clients all the time, and for myself, where if you just name the sensations that are happening in your body, regret is not that scary. Like I know when I feel regret, like there's like a tightness in my throat and a little bit of swirling in my stomach. And that's about it.
Yeah.
What is it that comes up for you around regret? What does it feel like for you?
Something like an empty, like a black hole, like in my solar plexus, like this kind of like emptiness feel, like this empty feeling of like, you know, I need to replace it or make it feel better or put something, you know, have a snack. I mean, that's so like relatable for me. Or something like that, like kind of an empty feeling.
Yeah. And so if we don't jump to story, which is what our brains want to do and say that empty feeling means something about me, about my life, you know, that's the scary part.
Yeah.
But if you just sit with a feeling of emptiness, emptiness is beautiful, right? Like an empty room has possibility. A blank canvas has possibility. So if we can sit with just the sensation and have enough, and this is a skill that we all need to learn because it is painful when we're not used to processing through our emotions. It is a skill set to be able to sit with and be with a sensation without, you know, going into story. But if we can do that, then regret doesn't feel so scary and it calms down our nervous system so that we can then look at the story. And you can see some part of me believes that I would be happier in a different situation, which is what our brains do all the time. Like you said, future, you know, like in the future, I will feel X instead of our power is always in the present moment. There's no future that we're going to be happier because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Not yet. We don't even know if we'll have it. It's here. And so here we get to process our feeling, we get to be present, and we get to then sink back into what do I want? I made this choice. To own your choice again. Say, I made this decision. Sometimes we have to soothe ourselves with the best information that I had available. Sometimes it helps to walk through why you made the decision and also to frame it as an act of courage. Like how brave of you and your husband. Like you did all the good information seeking, pros and cons. You talked about it. And then you took a baby step action and watched like a curious scientist. Let's see what happens. And isn't that such a more empowering place to come from in our lives? That's another tool I give my clients is, can we experiment with our lives? A lot of them are physicians, so they get that. Like, what if we're just seeing what happens? So we have to make a hypothesis, and then we see if it turns out the way that we thought, and we collect data, but you have to do the experiment. You have to take an action in order to give feedback to know. And so many people get stuck in the, let's gather a lot of information. You know, we outsource our authority to other people. Let's see what other people think. Let me look in the internet, deep dive. Let me ask ChatGPT. Some other authority has the right answer that then we will feel a certain way once we hear or know. And that's just a false story.
If you're loving this conversation as much as me, consider becoming a Raising Wild Hearts Plus subscriber. Your subscription will land you exclusive ad-free bonus episodes. Think behind-the-scenes conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Plus, you'll be supporting your favorite independent content creator. That's me, guys. There is so much that goes on behind the scenes of a podcast. By subscribing to Raising Wild Hearts Plus, your monthly subscription will help support the show so that I can keep creating amazing content for you. If you're ready to join, click the link in the show description. Can't wait to see you in there. All right, back to the show. Yeah. So you said so many things. You said empowerment and you said action. I recently taught a purposeful podcasting class for purposeful and impact-driven women who want to start their own podcast, who have a message that ultimately will change the world. And I had an attendee come to me after and we had a conversation and she said, well, Ryan, like I get everything you said. It's all so great. And like, you're just so confident. And I said, listen, no, I'm not. And yes, I am. And here's what you said. Thank you for that. And I'm receiving that. You're perceiving me as confident. And I want to tell you first that that's just a mirror of your own inner confidence. You're just seeing what is possible in you. Second, I didn't show up feeling like, I know exactly what I'm going to say. I know exactly where this is going. I know exactly who I'm going to talk to and all the things. I didn't show up like that on day one of this podcast 2+ years ago. I show up like that now in the conversations I'm having because of the many, many days and weeks I've spent practicing this skill of podcasting, interviewing, asking questions, thinking about topics and that. So confidence does come from action, which is what you hinted to. So let's unpack confidence and why we need that to actually make decisions a little easier.
Yeah. And I think I want to frame it too, that confidence comes from the decision making.
Yeah.
That taking the action and realizing, oh, I survived this. Like doing your first podcast. It feels really scary. I know the first interview I went on, and I still feel that jumping on this call, even though I know it's going to be amazing. And that's just a part of ourselves. So part of the confidence is having your own back always. Whether it flops, whether it goes great, standing beside yourself in that, I think brings the confidence to know that you can handle however it lands on the other side. So I would say that self-compassion and just standing by yourself, saying like, I am here for you no matter what happens. I'm here. I'm going to be your cheerleader. I'm going to be the person who picks you up. That to me is the prerequisite for even developing confidence in yourself. Because if you know that you have your own back, then you know that no matter how that action is, and no matter what lessons you learn from taking that action, you're not going to beat yourself up, and you're going to support yourself and be able to actually learn from the experience rather than take it as evidence that you are somehow unworthy or just indecisive or can't, whatever story that we tell ourselves, like bad at making decisions. I hear that all the time. I'm just bad at making decisions. It's just a story. But if you have your back and say, that didn't turn out the way I thought it would. What can we learn from it? How can I support myself through the emotions that are coming up? How can I keep moving forward? Reorienting to our inner compass. And that's the other piece that I think comes with confidence is, what are my values? Like knowing yourself. This hints to how we've outsourced our authority. So taking your authority back in, and I find that values work is just a really easy way for people to connect with that. Like, what am I valuing specifically in this season of life? Because we can make values really big and like all consuming. This is my life value versus this season in our lives. I'm guessing your husband and you, when you were making that decision about the house, were like, what do we want when our kids are this age? When we're here, what do we want for them? And it's a season, and it'll shift when they get to high school or they graduate and they're no longer at home. It's a different season, and your values can fluctuate. At least the priority value, like where that value. Maybe you have a value around adventure, but you have 2 small kids, and it's really hard to make that the top priority, right? The top value.
Yeah.
So connecting like, okay, in this like frame of our lives, this season of our lives, what are our top 3 to 5 values? And you can do that by yourself. You can do it in a partnership and make it, fun, but connect, and then let that be a regrounding thing as you move forward and take those action steps. And I think the confidence really does grow from taking sometimes smaller action steps, because if we make one big one, like you guys did, it was so beautiful. Just put our house on the market. That's one decision, one choice. We can then see how it goes.
Yeah. And that's what we did the whole way through, like the entire way through. And it just kind of unfolded with great ease, really. So I'm hearing you say that we need to be our own calm, confident, loving parent to ourselves. And that is the preface for everything. It's the preface for the confidence. It's the preface for easy decision making and watching things unfold as we take small actions, because, we're talking about emotions and being able to feel those things. We're talking about trusting ourselves and knowing that we did do the research that was necessary. This isn't about like sending up a wish and a prayer. This is about like still using our, prefrontal cortex and analyzing and gathering research to an extent. And in order to do any and all of that, we have to have our own back. And I pictured, as you were saying that, really what I thought of is like Brene Brown's thing, like strong back, soft front, like this really strong foundation and this, divine masculine, if you will, and this, feeling of being held. And then also this like, it's okay. We might stumble a little bit. This like soft place to land, like the mama bear when the toddler skins his knee, who just needs to nuzzle onto mama. So we have to be both of those things for ourselves. Many of us, I would venture to say, weren't really modeled or taught that, right? It's not something we really see all that often in our homes and at the grocery store and even at church or wherever we're spending our time. So, for me, stepping into that place of having my own back was really, it was quite a messy journey, and it was ugly, and I failed a ton, and I beat myself up a ton, and I was just so harsh. And then, it's still unfolding, like my love story with myself, as I like to call it. It's still happening. And some days I'm like, oh, self, look at you. Like, just, wow, just you're amazing, right? And some days it's harder, right? So how do we, as these imperfect humans who are stumbling through, just trying the best we can, provide that strong back and that soft front for ourselves, if that's the preface to all of it?
And I think that one of the easiest places to start accessing that is thinking about how you already show up in your life for others in that way. Like so many of the people listening, I'm guessing, are mamas. And I'm guessing so many of us know, like you've read the books, and you love your kids so much and you show up with that. You get it wrong all the time. I know I do. But with a strong back, that firmness, that structure, that fierce compassion, and then the tender side. There's a time to hold a kid accountable, and there's a time to scoop them up and love on them. And we do that for our friends where we're navigating that space. So I always recommend, and I say this all the time to my clients too, that you already have these skills. It's not about developing the skills themselves. It's not like you have to learn how to be tender or even learn how to be fierce. We can always enhance those skills, but you usually already have them and you're just applying them in certain contexts, and you're not applying them in the context of the relationship to yourself. Sometimes that can feel easier than thinking, oh, I've got to learn this whole nother thing to do. But it's really like, okay, if I was the child and the parent within me, how can I relate to these parts of myself differently? And that is the skill of like, how do we do that inside? Because it's more complicated because we're experiencing everything fully instead of it being an outside person.
Right. So, from where you're standing, what is all of this staying on the fence, getting caught in the research mode, labeling ourselves as indecisive? What is this costing us? Because I know it's a big cost. What do you see it costing the people you're working with and yourself and anybody?
Yeah. So several things. One is time. We're spending time doing that rather than actually enjoying our lives and moving forward and learning things. We spend a lot of time in this kind of whirlpool of swirling rather than just seeing how it goes and making a choice and getting to live our lives in that way. And then we lose our peace of mind because we're spinning, swirling. We wake up one day and we're like, this is the decision we're going to make. And then the next day we wake up and we're in self-doubt and fear. And we lose our sense of self-trust.
Yeah.
Which is so key because we think we can't trust ourselves to find the right answer, to act upon the right answer. And so then we're not living in a place where we're believing that we're capable of whatever decision we end up choosing.
Right.
And that's a huge cost to me.
Right. So we're just, when we are waffling, when we are on the fence, we are literally just crumbling up our energy, our peace, our time, our self-trust, and throwing it into the garbage can. Like we are literally just like dumping it out. It's just so energetically draining. So I think that's enough for people to go, okay, this is costing me a lot. Now we've named it, and just like you always say, to have that self-compassion, not this judgmental place, because we can go there very easily. Gosh, you're wasting your time again. You're wasting your energy again. You're doing this thing again. Like if we can be that nurturing parent with the soft back and the strong back and the soft front, we can see and name, okay, I'm doing this thing again. I'm throwing my energy out the window. I'm throwing my time out the window. I'm not trusting myself. Now what? Right? And so the now what brings me to this, like, how do we frame decision making so that we can actually go like, okay, we can do this. We don't want to be wasting all this stuff. We don't want to be throwing it out the window. How do we look at it from a logical perspective? I know there's not like a map. I know there's not a framework, but how can we just make it a little simpler so that it doesn't have to be so dramatic?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, well, maybe not the biggest thing, one way to frame decision making is as an experiment and to tap into your curiosity. And I think the piece that goes along with that sometimes can help us get into that curiosity is like, I wonder. Anytime we say, I wonder if this might happen, or I wonder what it would be like. Sometimes I have people look at the work that's on either side, because sometimes we're so caught up in like how we think we'll feel on either side of the decision. But the truth is that like your decision about moving, there was work on either side, work to stay and figure out like, why are we even considering moving? And like, how can we like find contentment with where we are? Like that would be the inner work. How do we like change our house so we enjoy it more? There's work on that side. And then there was work to sell your house and move things and adapt to a new city. And sometimes framing it in that way of which work do I want to do?
Yeah.
Instead of how do I think it'll feel? Sometimes we're just pulled to different kinds of work. When I left my job in teaching, I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew that I wanted to do the work of figuring it out rather than figuring out how can I recover from burnout and figure out how to regain my sense of fulfillment in teaching. That work was equally valuable. I could have gone that path. That would have been a, value-driven way to go. But when I really tuned into myself and I said, which work do I want to do? I wanted to do the work, the scary work, the courageous work of being like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I want to find out what my next thing is. I want to explore what's out there.
Yeah. So when we decided to, and this was wrapped up in the move a little bit, the area we moved in has many, many, many different education and school options, more than where we were before. And that was one of the things was we're in this homeschool co-op and it's going great and everything's fine and we're in a rhythm. But this could open up more opportunities. And I made the decision to put our kiddos in school because, and this is still something that I think about, and because I miss that time with them. I remember and it was, maybe 10, 15% of the time where I just was like, this is the best. We're at the beach or we're making empanadas and it's Tuesday at 10 a.m. and this is just the best. This is the best. And so I remember those times and I am being intentional about recreating those. Typically not Tuesday at 10 a.m., but that's still an option. We've skipped school this year just to go to the beach, just to go have fun. And so I'm incorporating those things in, and I really, really got honest with myself of what is the work I want to be doing? What is the majority of the work I want to be doing? And most of it was podcasting, writing, speaking, connecting with community. And the lesser part of that was teaching my kids and, carting them around to all the co-ops and, balancing this multi-dimensional schedule, which was never consistent and always a little bit fragmented. And so I really had to be honest with myself of what is going to bring me the most joy, what is going to bring me the most fulfillment. And I perceived that because it was going to bring me joy and fulfillment, that then my kids wouldn't be missing out on this joy and fulfillment, which is not true, right? They are finding joy and fulfillment in various ways, both in school and out still, right? And so I think this speaks so much to this fear of, oh my gosh, I'm going to feel guilty that my kids aren't getting this. Or I see this idealized version of what homeschooling in particular could be that feels so good in my soul. And I wish I had something like that when I was a kid. And so these decisions are so emotionally driven. They are so driven by so many things, how we grew up, what our values are, and I want to touch on that values piece for sure. And so all this to say, where you are coming from, if you are in a season where you're having to grapple with, oh my gosh, what do I do? Especially when it comes to kids and education and what's best for them. And then also what's best for you, mama, the woman here listening to us, because I don't know what you would say, Jennifer, but I'm interested in hearing, is it that mom needs to be happy and fulfilled first, and then the rest of the family falls in line from that? Or is it that we need to be self-sacrificing to, put the needs or perceived needs of our kids before ours? Or is it both?
That's such a good question. And you brought up so many nuances there. These aren't simple things. It isn't ever about just you find your values and then the decision is easy. There are so many emotional layers. There's a lot of shoulds that we put on ourselves. There's information that we've absorbed from our families. What does a good mom do? We have to unpack that, and we have to be vulnerable and safe enough with ourselves to be honest. Because that's a hard thing. So I just want to name how much courage that took to be able to sit with yourself and be like, no, this is the work that I want. Because there's so much that we absorb from everything about what a good mom should do. And if you've been doing something that also feels good some of the time, it's really hard. This is not an easy thing. So it needs so much grace around it.
Totally.
And then back to that self-sacrifice versus your own happiness. Again, it's a spectrum. It's all about bringing ourselves to the table. Because if we're not at the table, our needs do matter. They're at an equal level as our kids and our partners and our, depending on the relationship, of course, we have different ways of meeting certain people's needs and things like that. But our needs matter. And so we have to be at the table. We have to take ourselves into consideration. And because we've been so willing to keep ourselves out of the equation, we also need to give ourselves grace where we feel guilty for putting ourselves at the same level, at the same table for putting our needs on the table. And sometimes we swing where we're like, oh, I haven't been taking care of my needs. And so like they have to take the forefront. And that's okay. Like I feel like we'll find our rhythm and our balance. That's a normal part of when some part has been denied for it to kind of grow large and feel really massive. And so to have a container, that to me is where like if you have a container of self-trust and self-love and self-compassion for yourself and groups of people and ways to support yourself in that, because we are not an island, we need each other, then you can navigate that space and navigate, can I experience guilt? Again, guilt is just an emotion. Can we feel it without it making it mean I'm a bad mom? It doesn't. We choose that story. Guilt is there, and sometimes we just have to sit with the fact that there are trade-offs. That was the thing that I was thinking about in the last story you were talking about, is that there are trade-offs in any choice, and do we have the capacity to sit with the trade-off? And then also be creative and say, well, do I have to make this black and white? We can go to the beach. I can pull my kids out of school. Like we instantly sometimes think, well, then that's an impossibility, but it isn't. So can we sit with the trade-offs? Can we process some of the grief that life is different and that it was good where we were and it's good now and that the trade-offs are hard? Yeah. And then can we be creative around that? So that was a windy answer around that thing, but I think in terms of our needs mattering, it's never an either or.
Right. There's a sacred third door.
Yeah.
There's always like another way. And sometimes we have to be creative and kind of dream into the possibility of how we can have the best of both worlds, so to speak. Like I will say all the time, like I want it all, and not in like this like righteous way. I mean, maybe, hopefully not in this like Veruca Salt, the girl from the Willy Wonka chocolate factory, is like, Daddy, I want it all and I want it now. Like not in that way, not in this selfish kid in the candy store kind of a way, but in this expansive, like pure potentiality kind of way, in that we get to design and create the lives that we live in and how we feel. And an insight that I had, I don't feel like this is going to be helpful for some people, and it's a little embarrassing to even admit, but I think I had this vision of myself as this dutiful, like homeschooling mom who was so, doing the right thing, and this is the right thing because, and I just loved and I loved the label more than actually I loved the actual day in, day out work of it and feeling of it and vibe of it and rhythm of it and all of it. And so I really felt attached to, look at how good I'm doing. Look at how much better I'm doing than my mom. I kind of swung the pendulum because my mom is and was a business owner. She was very busy. She put me on the school bus and said like, good luck, kid. Like she, it was like that kind of a thing. And so I swung the pendulum over to the other side, honestly, out of this like trauma, fear-based space. It was not out of love. It was not out of like this authentic, true desire or decision for myself and my family. It was more based on like an egoic, like, I'll show you, I'll be better. I can, be self-sacrificing and do all this. And honestly, it was really hard for me. And I get that. Like we've all gone through those seasons of motherhood that have felt just so heavy, right? I know I have. And there've been a few of them. And so for someone in that season, just know like, I get it. Jennifer gets it. We've been there, and this too shall pass. I just thought that would be important to name there.
Yeah, that's so important, and honoring your vulnerability and sharing that, because we have to sift through all those things. And I love that question that was implied. Is this coming from fear or is this coming from love? And really getting in tune with that. And sometimes it's hard to know. So it's a question to let percolate in your mind, body, heart. But that is sometimes that we do things out of fear. How human of us, right? And sometimes when we move into a place of coming from love, that's where I think everyone's needs can get better met.
Yeah.
You know, when we're coming from that place of love for ourselves, love for our kids, things do, even if it's hard at the beginning because of transitions or things, like there's a place that we can rest in and say, well, I'm connected to this cord of love rather than this frantic kind of swirling of fear.
Yeah. Everybody listening, put a pin in it, screenshot it, send this to somebody, because that question, and I've posed that question on the podcast before, is this coming from fear or is this coming from love? And I think it's such a helpful reminder, for myself included, to be asking ourselves that question as we are approaching the big and the small decisions in our life, you know, and practicing on the small decisions. We talked about before we started recording how I've been now, I guess, almost 6 months, well, as this will air, more than 6 months into a 3-minute meditation practice in the morning for myself. And it's not just that I stay more centered in the day. I do stay more centered, but it is the biggest thing for me is that I can trust myself, because every single day, come hell or high water, I have gotten up through the stomach flu, through various holidays, through, you know, all the different things that we have going on as women and mothers in our lives. And so this self-trust piece is something I want to touch on with you. And I want to know, I really want to know, I know for myself, but I want to know for you and for your clients that you serve, what does or what might self-trust feel like in our bodies? So not in our brains, but like in our body. What kind of sense might we get when we are truly, truly trusting ourselves?
Such a good question. I'm first curious to know, how does it feel for you?
Yeah. So I felt it a number of times during this episode. And the best way to describe it is it feels like kind of a warm blankie. It feels really comforting, and definitely feel it in my heart, like an open, kind of expansive feeling. So I feel very grounded and yet open to, you know, just the possibility, but I don't know if that's it. It's not like open to the possibility. It's just maybe open to my own, it's an inside thing, open to my own inner guidance and wisdom is what it is. That's really long. I could have just said like, it feels warm in my, you know.
Yeah, I love that you walked yourself through it, because that's what we have to do. We have to be like, we are not taught how to do that. And we have to kind of wander our way through. And especially when we're not in the moment, we have to recreate it. So yeah. And I find that while everyone experiences things differently, it's always fun. I love hearing how like different clients or friends or whatever, I'm like, how does that feel for you? There's usually some universal like overlap, but it's also different for different people. So I love that. And I would say those elements of like openness and almost being like held, but grounded. And there's a sense of warmth.
Yeah.
Those elements, I would say for me, and because it's new, new in terms of I've been working on it for a while, but it's not something that always lives with me. I'm still working on growing it. There's a little bit of excitement too of like, oh, she's here.
Yeah.
I'm here. Like, okay, like what could we, it's like an openness to possibility, like access to a wisdom that's beyond me and of me. And that to me is really exciting, because it doesn't feel good to be so frantic and searching for that security outside of ourselves. And so there's such a relief and kind of an exciting power possibility feeling to be like, I have this compass inside. I have this source that's not an easy Google answer. It's not but it feels so much better.
Yeah. It's so good. This is an invitation for everybody here to think about and feel what is coming up for you as you are approaching different things in your life. You know, even during my 3-minute morning meditation, sometimes I'll be going like, this is hard today. Oh gosh, is it only been 2 minutes? Like this is, it's sometimes I struggle in those moments and it's practice for the rest of the day when I struggle. My point is though for people is I can get, and I know so many of you listening can get really, really caught up in our head and in the information and in the Google and in the Chat GPT and in like all that research mode. I could get stuck there for days and weeks, right? And so the opposite of that would be inviting yourself to what we've done a couple times now on this show is feeling, what does this feel like in my body without needing to even name or analyze or make it logical, just simply what's going on here in my body, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I even have an exercise that I learned a long time ago that I still use where I hold one choice in one hand. And I'm not thinking about it. I mean, I might bring up an imagery of like, what is it, so that I have something to hold. But then I'm sensing into what does it feel like in my body to hold this choice? How is it heavy? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it expansive? Like what shape is it? Even using that imagination, but also tuning in like, how do I feel when I think about maybe stepping into this choice or just holding it? And then letting it go and then holding the other choice and noticing. And it really is, you have to kind of turn off that part of like, well, I need to find the right choice. Like maybe this exercise will bring me the clarity that I want. You have to turn down that anxious part that's like, maybe this will give me the key. You have to dip into curiosity and observation and curiosity. And so feeling, you felt the one choice, you pick it up in your other hand, you feel it, same weight, tuning in, drop both, let it go, both go. And then sometimes it's really helpful to bring your hands together and hold both choices together. Because like you mentioned before, sometimes there's a third door, that it's not a binary choice.
Yeah.
That you haven't allowed yourself or your brain out of its fear response has narrowed. And we need to be able to be like, is there any way to bring these choices together?
Yeah.
And that can be a really powerful practice. And it may take more times to tune back in because we have to sift through layers. Fear, monkey mind will come up. But I found that tuning in to ourselves, like you said, dropping out of our minds into something connected to something bigger than ourselves will often help us, guide us, at least nudge us in maybe a small next step to take.
So good. You mentioned earlier, like it can feel safe to waffle and get stuck in this like kind of research mode is what I would call it for me. And what if we made it safe to do what you just said and just safe to sit with each thing without needing to, do anything, just feeling safe to sit with both, feeling it, that it's safe to consider that there is a sacred third door, feeling safe to consider all those things. And I think that's really where like this nervous system piece comes in. When we feel safe, I tell my kids all the time, we're not going to be able to figure out a solution when we're yelling or, even whining or even like heightened at all. Like we're not going to be able to figure out a solution from that place. So let's all calm down and then we can probably figure out a solution from there, I'm sure. And so calming down and getting out of that, like, frantic, as you called it, mode of we need to get this choice. We need to get it right. We need to just like, letting it be. Right.
Yeah. That is so key. I can't emphasize that so much. The past 2 years, I've been doing a lot of nervous system work. And I really think that we can't just use our minds. We really have to know how to soothe our own systems, usually through our bodies to some extent before our minds come back online in a place that we can be creative from. So just underlining how much that helps us drop out of frantic thinking mode into a system where we're like, oh, this is what safety feels like in our body, and creating that for ourselves, not necessarily from a story in our mind, but from an action that gives our nervous systems the input that they need to feel safe.
Well, thank you so much for doing that work, because this conversation has felt very soothing to my nervous system. And I know everybody out there, I hope everybody out there is feeling that too. Like you are just a presence of pure light and love and compassion. And I so appreciate the work that you do and just showing up again and walking us through what can feel like really, really hard and heavy stuff to making it feel really, really just doable and possible. Thank you.
Thank you for receiving your beautiful words. It is an absolute pleasure. I've been excited about talking to you for the past month of like, oh, I get to talk to Ryan again. So Thank you for your work in the world and for hosting so many beautiful souls on your podcast and showing up the way that you do. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm receiving that right back. Just so grateful. I'm basking in gratitude today for a number of different reasons. And this is just like, the frosting on the cake, and it's amazing. So you said the word clarity. You've got something that you've made. We're going to link it up in the show description and the show notes below. But do you want to tell us what it is that you want us to go find from your site?
Yeah, please go, and it'll be in the show notes. So it's the Decision Clarity Guide. And it's just the first steps that I give people around how to soothe your nervous system, how to, that dip your toe in of like, how do you connect with your values? How do you show up? How do you pre-decide ahead of time how you're going to deal with regret and deal with those stories? So I hope that these are tools that I give my clients, that they're tools that I use when I'm stuck in the indecision looping place that we get to in our brain. And so I'm hoping that it will be a source of support and like a first step for someone who's like, this is costing me too much to be on the fence all the time around so many things. And I'm ready to dive in and figure out where I'm going to jump.
Totally. I will be signing up for your mailing list because I don't know if I'm on it yet, which is crazy. But so yes, I will be personally grabbing that for sure because we need it. We all need it. So everybody click the link down below and grab that for yourself. You will be in good company because I will be there right along with you. And now as we wrap up, I know you know the deal. I'm going to ask you the same questions that I ask everybody at the end of the interview. And the first one is, what is the first one? Yes, the first one is, I got so caught up in like the gratitude and like the flow. What's bringing you joy today?
Well, this conversation, first, but we just joined a community garden and I've been watching seeds come up and it always gets me. You put something in the ground and then you water it and you're like, nothing's happening. And then those sprouts start coming up and it feels like a miracle every time. And I get excited like a little kid. So that is something that's bringing me joy every time. I'm like, okay, it's my day to water the garden. And I'm like, what's going to be there?
Yes, that's so cool. It's such a miracle. I love that. And what, if anything, are you reading?
So many things. I am really bad about checking out more books from the library than I can ever touch. But it's like an aspirational thing. I think I've framed it instead of, I used to shame myself of like, why can't you, only pick out the books that you want? And I re-changed that story of, this is my place of abundance. Libraries are amazing. I love them. This is my chance to remember that like all this knowledge is here. So that's when I see my huge stack of books that I will not read. I'm like, this is my sign that the world is abundant and there's so much cool knowledge out there. Just a reminder. Even if it hurts my back, taking them back and forth to the library. The book I would highly recommend that I keep reading over and over, and it's on my shelf again, is The Secret Language of the Body. And I'm forgetting the authors. It's Jennifer something. I can look it up. I'm sure you have your amazing list where you send out.
I do. And this one needs to go on there. The Secret Language of the Body.
And it's about regulating your nervous system. I really love, it's Jennifer Mann and Carden Robin.
Okay.
It's been just the framework that they give, I find is really helpful for walking someone who's new to the work through it. And they're linking it to so many conditions that we experience, including anxiety, depression, chronic pain. There's just so much wisdom. And I feel like it's the next frontier for a lot of the things that we're struggling with as a society. And it has changed my life in a way where I'm like, oh, wow, I am not getting heated the way I used to, or I just have the tools to let my nervous system fluctuate the way that it needs to instead of getting stuck on high or stuck on low.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. That is going on the list for sure. And I'm also going to steal your book abundance reframe because I am right there with you. Yes. Okay, great. And then the last question I have for you is who or what has taught you the most?
Yeah. And I love this question, and I am going to put it in the context of decision making for my answer for this call. And it's really, I'm going to get teary because I was thinking about this and I'm like, it's really my husband, because we have made so many big decisions together. And not only have I learned how to have my own back, but to know that you have someone who, like, no matter how this goes, no matter what ends up, we're going to have each other. We have each other's backs. Has allowed me to make crazy big decisions. And so honoring him, that he's taught me a lot about decision making, but also just we've been there for each other. And so that's the big one.
Now I'm crying again too, which, it's a great day when you can laugh and cry and feel the full spectrum. That is beyond beautiful. And I resonate so much with that. So thank you for that mirror and that reminder too. Shout out to all the strong and supportive husbands out there who are partnered with wild and courageous women like Jennifer and I. It takes a rare and strong breed to partner with us wild ones. So that is a shout out to all of you amazing men out there. Thank you so much again for being here.
Of course, it's a pleasure. I will talk to you any day.
You stuck around for the long haul today. That's amazing. If you have not signed up yet, become a Raising Wild Hearts Plus member. By joining today, you'll get exclusive ad-free episodes. These are real and raw conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Plus, I'll include you on my weekly Wednesday emails. Sometimes it's sweet, sometimes it's funny. It's always from the heart. I don't know about you, but I'm all for inbox inspiration. So let's keep this conversation going. Click the link in the description to join Raising Wild Hearts Plus now.